Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the practice of Ayurveda, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Times. My name is Mary Varakis, Program Manager for Programs for 50 Plus at the Chang School of Continuing Education. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the land on which Ryerson University is built upon. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a territory between the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous peoples, nations, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I personally want to pay my respects to the Indigenous peoples, elders, and ancestors who stewarded and cared for the nature and people who lived on the land where Ryerson is located today, as well as to the families and communities of the thousands of lost children who died as a result of the residential school system. At the university, we have made a deep and long-lasting commitment to truth and reconciliation and reconciling our university's namesake and legacy, but there is still much to be done. We look forward to the release of the Standing Strong Task Force report in September. I invite you to learn more about this work online, as well as the Truth and Reconciliation report at trc.ca. Now, I'd like to go over just a few quick items so you know how to participate in today's workshop. Please ensure your microphone is muted throughout the workshop so as not to disturb other attendees as well as our presenter today. Please refrain from having your video on. However, if you do decide to have your video on, that's perfectly fine. But please be mindful that your actions and your camera are visible to everyone attending today's workshop. For the hearing impaired, we do have automated captioning available, which you can access by activating the toolbar that is at the bottom of your screen. You will have time to submit your text questions to today's presenter by typing in your questions in the chat box of the control panel. You can send in your questions when prompted by our presenter during the Q&A session that will follow at the end of today's presentation. Please note that the opinions expressed in the event today by the speaker and do not express the views or opinions of Ryerson University. The information provided in this workshop is not intended to provide medical advice and is only for general information purposes. I would now like to introduce our guest speaker for today, Debra Joy Eklove, for today's workshop. Debra Joy Eklove is an Ayurveda consultant and Art of Living Foundation teacher. For over 15 years, she has taught balance and happiness through yoga, meditation, breathwork, and the knowledge of life. Debra was a consultant for Tetley Tea Canada in the development of their successful Ayurveda Balance brand. She is Director of Product Development at Veda by Sonia and teaches Ayurveda at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. Prior to concentrating on teaching, Debra had a private practice in body-centered psychotherapy and shiatsu, and she managed not-for-profit organizations in the health and education field. She has studied with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar and other leaders in the fields of energy, Ayurveda, and vibrational medicine. Debra has a Bachelor's of Commerce from McGill University and a Master's of Science from the London School of Economics in England. Welcome, Debra Joy Eklove. It's great to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm delighted to be able to be here and share with you and the people who are attending my love of Ayurveda and impart to you some of the basics of it, which I think will create your curiosity to learn more. First of all, as Mary mentioned, I began my journey as a practitioner of alternative and complementary wellness when I started studying shiatsu and energy medicine. And for about 6 years after that, had a private practice as a body-centered therapist. My approach was to increase people's awareness of how the body remembers everything and also how to learn to let it go so that both the body and the mind are released from trauma, discomfort, pain, and even joy at times. In 2002, I began my journey with Ayurveda. And when I learned it, it was like finding a glove that just fit my hands so perfectly. I became very passionate about it, and I love the depth and the variety of what we can do as lay people with the knowledge of Ayurveda. But first, let me be sure that you understand this presentation is for information and educational purposes only. I don't present medical advice or propose solutions for any medical conditions. Ayurveda does have a branch that does that, but my specialty is more nutritional and lifestyle. If you do have any health issues, please consult your health practitioners and healthcare providers for any specific information for specific questions or conditions. Medical practitioners of Ayurveda are called Vedyas. That's the Sanskrit word for the doctor. And the training of the Veda is extensive with academic and practicum studies of the systems of Ayurveda. And that also includes, at times, allopathic medicine, Western medicine. So in today's program, my aim is to help you understand key terms and the Ayurveda approach to self-care. I will be teaching 3 tools to bring balance and to be centered. And as I mentioned, I very much want you to celebrate with me the ancient wisdom and the modern science and how they now intersect. And as we see, ancient and modern, East and West, the approaches to well-being are very complementary and work well together. In fact, more and more science, researched science, is showing that what Ayurveda has taught for over 5,000 years is really important. An
Debra,
example, yes?
I sincerely apologize for interrupting. Would you be able to minimize your screen a little? Much of the top and the side are not visible to us on your slide deck.
Okay, let me see if...
That's brilliant. Perfect. Oh, it went back to large again.
Did it? Oh, well, okay.
You know what? You had it there for a brief moment.
Let me see what happened. I mean, that's, well, let's see if this,
It's okay now, I think.
Yeah,
We can see your whole slide deck, but that's okay if that's the way it needs to be.
if that's the way it needs to be, it's fine. There's nothing that I mind you seeing.
Oh, thank you.
No,
I sincerely apologize.
that's okay. I appreciate your letting me know. I'd like people to see the slides as fully as possible. You know, and what I was saying is about East and West, we fully understand now that things that were done in the East are now scientifically being proven. An example being the spice turmeric. At one point, medical science thought it was just a yellow coloring agent, and now it's well understood that the components of turmeric are important healthcare, important parts for our well-being. Similarly, when it comes to understanding the biodome, the stomach, Ayurveda has always said gut health was primary to well-being. And now science is understanding, scientific research is understanding that what we eat is so crucial, and that what we eat affects our brain, affects our metabolism. And as we say in Ayurveda, what we eat today is who we are tomorrow. So understanding the impacts of diet is really, really crucial for our well-being. So I won't delay anymore. I'm just going to make sure I can see my slides here. So Ayurveda is an ancient science. Ayur means life, Veda means knowledge. So it's the science, it's the knowledge of life. It's the knowledge of your life, individually and collectively. It's based on the ancient Indian philosophy of Samkhya, which is a philosophical approach understanding the manifestation and existence of the universe, from the subtle to the gross, from the ethereal to the concrete, from the intangible to the tangible. It deals with the origins and creation of life. As I mentioned, it was written down 5,000 years ago, but existed well before that as well. It is a complete system of health, both preventative and curative, and it aims to preserve health, overcoming ailments even before they become a problem, alleviating the suffering of all living beings. There is human, animal, plant awareness in the science of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda, it understands the body as a vehicle for spiritual development. As in the Indian tradition, the ancient tradition, the Lord Dhanvantari is known as the father and pioneer of Ayurveda, who in a lovely story passed on the knowledge of Ayurveda to the scientists called rishis of the time. And these rishis kept it oral for a long time, and then 5,000 years began writing it down. The treaties from 5,000 years, even today, are understandable and contain the knowledge that is applied in Ayurveda. The divine knowledge is shared with the people, and because it was oral, it was shared in a rhyming couplets, and I'll come to that shortly. But just to get a little view of Ayurveda and the branches, as I mentioned, it is preventative and curative. So Ayurveda has many branches that we recognize in Western medicine. There's surgery, ear, nose, and throat, internal medicine, psychiatry, pediatrics, toxicity. The two that are more unique to Ayurveda are rejuvenation and aphrodisiacs. Rejuvenation is so crucial for us in our 50+ age range because there are things that we can do to keep the body and the mind as young as possible. And the crucial part of Ayurveda throughout is to be balanced, because balance is the key to life. We all know there's ups and downs. We all know things change. And when we lose our balance is when we lose our capacity and our resilience and our enthusiasm to be in the process we're in. We'll sometimes lag behind, wanting it to be the way it was, or we'll rush ahead, wanting to get out of the discomforts. But the key is to be balanced in what is here right now. So, as I mentioned, Ayurveda was written down in rhyming couplets, and they're written down in Sanskrit. And in Ayurveda, the definition of a healthy individual is someone whose doshas are in balance, and I'll explain what doshas are later on, whose appetite is good, whose bodily tissues are functioning normally, which includes the organs, whose excretory functions are in balance, because of course we have to get toxicity out of our body, and whose self, mind, and senses remain full of bliss. This is a healthy person. Self relates to our spirit. Mind relates to our perceptions and our emotions and our senses. And all of these are used through the body. So on top, in the Sanskrit, I've written down the Ayurveda definition of health, and it would be chanted in a melodious fashion, which would help the mind remember. So it would be something like, and I apologize to anybody who knows Sanskrit well, it goes something like, Samadosha, Samadnischa, Samadatu Malapriya, Parasant Medriyana, Shivra Iya Bidiyayat. So there is a lilt to it and an understanding of all the functions that are important for our health. Now, balance is the key. So what is your balance? Because of course, when we're in balance, we can be the best we can be. In Ayurveda, your balance is unique to you. In Ayurveda, it's understood that when we are born, we come into this world with a combination of elements that are specific and unique to us. And as I often say to my students in the naturopathic college, this is something you really can blame on your parents. Yes, it's that combination of elements that we have when we are born, which is our balance. And each of us is unique. So what that means is balance doesn't mean everything is equal. Balance means going back to that wonderful combination, that wonderful innocence, that wonderful growth that was there when we were born. And when we were given the right food and rest and love, all of these balance so that the tools and the talents that come with that balance are there for our growth. I say our because our tools and our talents are not for us. They're for the world. It's our responsibility to share our tools and our talents to fulfill this life purpose, and to grow ourselves and help others grow as well. So what are these elements? The elements are ones that we know. The elements, as I talk about elements, they're qualities: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And I mean the qualities of these, not necessarily the physical structure. These qualities are present in all of the physical universe. All of the physical universe have qualities of heaviness or lightness, hot or cold, subtle or gross, clear or cloudy. And each of these elements, even just knowing a little bit about them, obviously earth is going to be heavy, space and ether is going to be light, water is going to be liquid and fluid, air will be moving, and air will be invisible, fire will be hot. Those are qualities that are in the elements. And I'm not testing you, you don't have to remember this, but I thought it would be useful for you to see that when we talk about the elements, we're really only talking about 20 different qualities that are opposites from each other. And in this chart, we can see how water is smooth and air is rough. The symbols on the bottom are duplicated next to the names of what they are. And we can see that water is soft and earth is hard. The combinations, as we see also, is not all elements have all of these qualities. And so that makes up the beautiful universe that we live in. We live in it not only externally, with the wind and the air and the fire and the grass and the ocean, we live in it internally as well. We are made up of these 5 elements. That's all there is. We are made up of the qualities of these 5 elements. That's all there is. If you find a 6th, do let us know. Nobody has yet come up with one that cannot be explained by the 5 that we understand. And to make it a little clearer for you, let's do a short meditation together. In the meditation, just sit quietly. You're on your own, so you can sit and relax with it. In the meditation, I'd like you to become aware of your bones and become aware of the muscles and become aware of the heaviness of your body. All that is solid, all that is dense, that is the earth element in your body. Just take a moment and bring your awareness to those parts of the body. Now, bring your attention to all the flow of liquid in the body. This includes the blood and the lymph, the saliva, reproduction. All of these are the water element, and water connects one thing to another. Water flows and transports wood down the river, blood vessels into the stream of the body's movement, continuously moving. This flow is unconscious most of the time, but liquid comes and goes, and without it, there would be no life. We can have too much, we can have too little. The balance is what's important. Now become of what you can see. You don't have to open your eyes, but sight gives color. Sight gives heat. Become aware of the temperature in your body, hot or cold. Become aware of the metabolism. We eat food which is metabolized, which is transformed through heat, through elements of fire to become all that the body needs in small ways of cells and in larger ways, nails, hair. The cells combine to become the features of our body, and it's the fire, the metabolism, the Agni, which is the Sanskrit word for fire, that allows transformations to happen. Our sight depends on fire. Next, become aware of the air, breathing in and out. We're just big windbags. We're just continuously, unconsciously, usually, having air breathe us. We don't breathe. The breath breathes us, coming in and out. And with it, it brings the oxygen and it brings prana, the life force energy, which is so crucial for the activity of the body. Without breath, the body is inert. Without breath, we cease. Breath, air, is crucial for the well-being and for the life force to be in us. And space, well, we can bend our arm at the elbow because there's space there. But we can't bend the arm in the middle of the forearm because there's no space there. Space is crucial for movement, for vibration. And as modern science knows, quantum physics knows, all of the world is a vibrational force. Some bigger, some smaller, some longer, some shorter, but everything is vibrating. Some we can see and some we cannot. And Ayurveda has known this for thousands of years. So these are the 5 elements and the qualities of the 5 elements in our being. Interesting? So having this perspective on our bodies, our lives, and our minds, when we understand the 5 elements, we have a better and bigger understanding of what is happening as we live our lives internally and in the physical world and in the spiritual world. Again, though, balance is the key. And in Ayurveda, balance is when the soul, the senses, and consciousness are content. See, Ayurveda has understood that reducing stress and living a contented life is the key to our well-being and to our sharing our gifts. Now, everything in nature has cycles and rhythms, and we get out of balance when we have wrong interactions with these cycles and rhythms. To understand the rhythms helps counterbalance the impact of external environment or counteract choices that can make us lose our balance. Being out of balance creates stress and can negatively impact our well-being. Rhythm is crucial for reducing our stress. And we can try a short experiment here as well. So I'm just going to clap my hands and then I invite you to clap your hands with me. Okay, so that was one part of the experiment. And the other part, I'm going to do the same thing and join me again. And join me with awareness of what may be happening in your body. So these are the 2 options. In the first time, there was no rhythm. Did you find yourself alert, wondering when I was going to clap? Did you feel a little bit of anxiety or tension in the body? In the second time, it was very rhythmic. Almost it could become an expectation of when the next clap would come. And that's a simple example of how when we have an expectation of what's to come and how we keep ourselves in a rhythm, we can reduce the stress, which is why planning is important, which is why Ayurveda understands the importance of daily rhythms and seasonal rhythms, and making sure that our rhythm is in balance with nature. Balance is affected by many, many aspects. So the seasons affect us, weather affects us. If it's a rainy day, especially if it's a rainy, cold, snowy, damp day, most of us don't want to go out. We may have to, but the impact of the environment on our body is making it heavy and damp, which is making it more solid. And it's not a situation where we want to be moving around a lot. The time of day affects us. In the middle of the day, when the sun is the highest, there is the most heat in our system. There's the most heat in the environment, which is why Ayurveda says, take advantage of the heat. Take advantage of the heat by having your biggest meal, because fire is important for digestion. When you use nature to help your digestion, you get the most out of what you're eating. And there are many tips in Ayurveda how to eat. And if we have time today, I'll be able to go into it, or we could do that another time. Relationships bring us in and out of balance, don't they? I think I can feel your smiles as I say that, because some relationships are calming and some relationships are fiery and some relationships just bring you down. And that's because of the qualities of the 5 elements that are there in you and in that to which you are relating. Our lifestyle can affect our balance. The sports that we do, the activities we have affect lifestyle. Some people love to swim. Some people love to walk. Some people walk fast. Some people walk slow. These are all explainable in Ayurveda, which is a crucial and delightful way to help make choices. When you have the right work that is in sync with the qualities that are your gift from birth, you will be more content than if you have work which is in conflict with the qualities that are important for your gifts to flourish. Interesting, eh? So a teacher is different than a manager of a big company in terms of the qualities that they have, that they use daily. The charisma may be needed in both, but a different kind of comfort and support is needed for the people we're with. And an artist, well, artists need to be creative and free like the air and like the space, but they also need to be able to bring it into matter as well, to bring it into creativity. Lifestyle is important. And age, well, in Ayurveda, it's wonderful to learn that age is a factor that affects how we view the world and also things that will happen to us. Now, if you're like me, you may already know that the walking into a room and forgetting something is part of life, and that's part of the age. See, in Ayurveda, when you're growing, when physically growing, which is now understood from about 0 to even 30 or 35, you're in your stage of life where you're bringing structure to life. From about 30, 35, now even to 80, you're in that dynamic space where you need your firepower to go out and build your family and get that job and fulfill goals. And then after 80, you're in that space where your work is done and you have a chance to relate more to the spirit and relate more to being an advisor rather than being in the fray of things. These ages vary, the numbers vary, but the stages are there for all of us. Balance is also affected by pollution. Most of the elements can be polluted. Water, air, earth, these can have toxicity from the lifestyle, from the industrial lives that we have. And the more we can remove toxicity from what we ingest and the environments we live in, the better off we can be for ourselves. And the last balance is affected by food. And that, quite honestly, is a whole program on its own. But easy enough to say that When we eat fresh, when we eat well prepared, when we eat properly spiced food, that's who we become. And when we eat food which is frozen or canned, or food that is old and doesn't have life force, that's who we become. So the choices of food and the way we prepare them is crucial. And we're very lucky to be living in Canada, industrialized societies, where not only can we eat good food, we can eat local food. We can eat food according to the seasons, because research, science is showing that when we eat seasonally, our health is better, we're feeling better, which makes sense because we live in environments that sometimes are hot and sometimes are cold. Our bodies are affected by this, sometimes hot, sometimes cold. The food that nature gives us at each season is there to remedy, is there to work with the seasons and that which is external. So our internal is better. So in the summer, when it's hot, we get the berries. And in the fall, when we get ready for the cold, we get the potatoes and the apples, which are more solid and more nutrient. So balance is affected in so many ways in Ayurveda. And as lay people, we can learn simple remedies and simple ways of dealing with the rhythms and patterns of nature that are in the body. We know that the birds fly at certain times. We know that we want to sleep at certain times and we want to be up at certain times. And science more and more is showing us the importance of sleep. I find it very exciting. Almost daily, I'm reading how Western medicine, doctors and scientists are understanding the circadian rhythms, are understanding the melatonin, are understanding how important it is that we follow the cycles of nature and be asleep before midnight and get up early with the sunrise. And if we sleep in a dark room or sleep with sleep masks, our sleep is better. Sleep with air circulating around us, whether it's hot or cold. But the quality of our sleep determines the quality of our life. Even the most enlightened person, if you take away their sleep for 3 or 4 nights, their mind won't be working as fully as when their sleep pattern of 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night are honored and recognized. Sleep is crucial. And that's one of the rhythms and patterns in nature. And as you become more sensitive and aware of the rhythms and patterns in nature, you'll see not only hunger comes in patterns, but your emotions come in patterns. It's impossible to be in one emotion for more than 2.5 days. It can change, but whatever the emotion is, after 2.5 days, there will be a shift because of our relationship to nature. So Ayurveda links the elements, the 5 elements, to the 5 senses, which is how we perceive the world. It's really quite brilliant and quite simple. But each of the 5 senses relates to one of the elements. So space, to be able to hear, it's a sound. A sound has a vibration, so it needs some space. And obviously, the organ of action is the ear. Air relates to the touch. And if you take your hand and slowly bring it towards your arm, many of you may find that even before you're physically touching your arm, you have a sense of an impact on that part of your body. So the air is all around us as well as inside us. And through the sense of touch on the skin, we access the qualities of air. As I mentioned, sight, eyes is fire. And a simple way of understanding one of the qualities of fire is anything that you see that has color has fire in it. Oranges, yellows, brightness, that's all fire element, transformation, and such a crucial part of our experience of the physical world. The water element is experienced through the tongue and taste. And the tongue is a fascinating organ, which has many, many aspects that help us decide what's best to eat and what we can avoid. And the Fifth element, earth, is the nose. So Ayurveda understands there are sense organs and there are also organs of action. See, the aim in Ayurveda is for the body to be at its stress-free, relaxed sense so that the nervous system can function for us to exhibit our gifts. The organs of action in Ayurveda are that which move the body. Hands, feet, reproduction system so that we can continue. Excretory system so that toxins can be removed. Vocal cords so that we can talk and speak. And an organ of action is the mind. For many of us, I know the mind seems to take over all the time, and we have this monkey mind that can be there, jumping from one thing to the other. But as we use the tools of Ayurveda and calm the mind, we can then start making decisions which are conscious, decisions that are beneficial, decisions that overcome habits that don't serve us, and be as full as we can in the beauty of our lives as we're living them now. So there are 5 elements and 5 senses. 5 can be hard to deal with. Dosha is the term that was used in the definition of Ayurveda, and the dosha is a combination of the 5 elements. Dosha means that which causes problems, that which upsets. Why? Because if there was none of these elements, we would be in that calm, peaceful state, which is called sattva. I'm not going to go much into that, but the spirit, the consciousness is always calm and peaceful. And that which upsets that peace are the 5 elements of the physical manifestation of life. And they combined into 3 doshas because 3 is easier to understand. So Vata is that combination of space and air, and everything that moves is Vata. Pitta is a combination of fire and water, and everything that transforms has Pitta energy. And Kapha is the combination of water and earth and its structure. Now, we all have all 3. Absence of any one of the 5 elements results in a lack of life. So we need them all. The balance issue is one of proportion. Some of us will be mainly Vata, some mainly Pitta, some mainly Kapha. Some of us will be combinations. Most of us will be combinations, either Vata Pitta or Pitta Kapha, or Kapha Pitta. Combinations are different. And a few of us will have the combination of all 3 pretty much balanced. So we'll have Vata Pitta Kapha in balance. What this means is that if I am a Pitta person, so I have a lot of fire in my system, when the external environment is hot, I will get hotter. I may not like it because I may not like to be hot. And it's not a matter of liking or not liking, it's understanding that the external heat of summer may be harder for a person who has a lot of fire in their system than a Vata person who may chill most of the time and is really happy that they're finally sitting in something warm, which is like me. A Kapha person may or may not like the summer because there's water. They may sweat a lot. They may just find it too humid for them because internally they have more water. So it's interesting to look at things from the doshic perspective. And as I mentioned, the elements define everything in our physical environment. So the doshas are a combination of the qualities of the 5 elements that we looked at. And I've mentioned there are 20 different words, 10 combinations that are looked at in the material world in terms of understanding our world. So in what we see here, part of the carrot is hard, part of the carrot is soft. Part of the carrot is stable and part of it is mobile. The hard, immobile part is the kapha part, the structure. The part that blows in the wind, easily moving, is the vata part. And the part between the carrot and the leafy part at the top is where transformation takes place, and that's the pitta part. And as I've mentioned, anything that's colorful has a lot of pitta. So the carrots in this picture, the carrots have a lot of pitta in them. So the doshas will determine the shape, the size, the color, the temperature, the scent of everything that exists. Birds, animals, plants, fruit, people. People will vary their shapes, their minds, according to how much of the elements they have in their body. And their flexibility, their movement, their interests in the life will be affected somewhat by the kapha, pitta, or vata in their system. The kapha, pitta, vata can also determine some of their mental outlooks. We understand that when there's too much stress in a body, we talk about the fight, flight, or flee syndrome, right? So, kapha, pitta, vata. The pitta, the fire, they're the ones who are going to fight. The vata are the people who are going to freeze. They're going to remove themselves into themselves when there's a lot of stress. And the kapha people is fight, flight, or freeze. The kapha may freeze, the vata may freeze. The kapha may flee or the vata may flee. It depends a little bit more on their situations. But you can see somewhat how a person will respond to a stressful situation when you understand their dosha makeup and the kind of stress that they have. So how do we find your dosha? Because we all want to know what it is, I'm sure. So when I was with Tetley, I did create a short quiz, and on the screen, you can see the link for it. So it's tetley.ca/find-your-balance/dosha-quiz.html. You can go on there and you can do this 17-question quiz, and you'll get a report which gives you a general overview of what your dosha is. There are many such links on the website, and you may know some already. You can probably Google, because Mr. Google knows everything. You can Google dosha quiz and you'll find a number that will give you information. These usually will give you general information. But when you go to a Veda or a practitioner, there's 3 ways that in addition, they'll help you to find your unique dosha. And the uniqueness can then be very subtly understood, because the quizzes will give a general outline. But when you sit with a specific person, they'll observe the way you sit, the way you move. They'll observe your physical properties and have an understanding of your dosha. They'll look at the shapes of your features. They'll have a variety of ways of observing the physical body and the way the mental body works through it. They'll ask you questions. How did you sleep? How was your digestion? What's your favorite food? Simple things that will help discern what your unique dosha is. And the most amazing and wonderful part of the Ayurveda process of ascertaining your dosha is pulse diagnosis. As you see in the picture, it's very simple. The practitioner will take 3 fingers and place them below your wrist on the radial part of your arm. And in those 3 fingers, each finger is a different dosha, vata, pitta, kapha. Through years of training and sensitivity and understanding the vibrations of the body inside and out, they will be able to tell you what your unique balance is when you were born, what your balance is today, which will be different than what it was when you were born, probably, because as we grow and stages of life and weather will affect what that balance is. And they can also say what expected imbalances may happen in the future. And so as a layperson, you can take steps to address imbalances that may appear in the system. And that can be found out through the pulse diagnosis through a practitioner. And if you're interested in knowing practitioners, if you don't know one, I'd be happy to make recommendations for you. So this is the dosha. Now, in the short time we have left, I want to look a little bit more at the Ayurveda process so you can understand. Because through Ayurveda, we can control and regulate the mind and body functions when we use the principles of Ayurveda and the knowledge of Ayurveda. We can move from the ignorance and physically oriented life where we don't really understand a bigger picture, but we move from that which is around us physically to one of vitality and self-expression and action, and finally to one of peace and enlightenment. And it's the ultimate way to a healthy life. The peace and the enlightenment is a reduction of stress so that we can make decisions and participate with others, bringing to others that experience as well. So I'll share with you two principles of Ayurveda, which probably will make sense. The first is, if you eat right, you won't need medicine. And if you don't eat right, medicine won't help. What I love about Ayurveda, and which probably got me quite involved in it, is that in the kitchen is where we have so many of the tools that we can use to help our immunity, to help our digestion, to help our mind focus, to help growth. When it comes to Ayurveda principles and when it comes to Ayurveda food, Ayurveda recognizes 6 tastes: sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, and astringent. And each of these tastes have a function. It's not just that we want to enjoy them, but each of them are part of the building blocks and part of the growth process. And at certain times of life, we can have more of one or the other. Depending on what our dosha is, we can have more of one or the other. A simple example is if you're kapha, if you have a lot of earth and you're very solid, you probably don't need as much solid food as a person who is vata, very airy and moving a lot. A person who's vata needs to ground. They need grounding food. A kapha person is already grounded. The physical body is very grounded, so they can eat light and they don't need to eat as much because the physical body is providing them a lot of the nutrients and their immunity is strong. So if you eat right, that can allay the way the body grows over time. And if you don't eat right, you're interfering with the impact of medicines that you're on. And more Western doctors, I've heard neurologists and gastroenterologists talking about the biodome and the importance of having the right combinations in our stomach so that we can have health. And these are medical practitioners who understand the importance of medicines as well. And they still talk about the importance of the gut and eating properly. The other Ayurveda principle is to address imbalances like increases like. What do I mean? Is if you're feeling cold, that means you want to increase the heat, so you eat hot food. You spend your time in warmer environments. You spend time with warm people. All of the different ways of increasing warmth will help increase warmth in the body. Similarly, if you find yourself active, agitated, so that's a vibration which moves very fast, you want to slow it down. So you do things that are slower. So you walk slower, you spend time in nature, you relax more, which then opens up that agitation and opens up that vibration. You can spend time in meditation, which calms the mind and calms the body and allows the thoughts to be like passing clouds. They don't have to be there, but very often we hold on to them. We hold on to them so tight, we contract around them. But to address imbalance, like increases like, we want to expand, we want to open so that the vibrations can be soothing and comforting and that we can have more balance in our life. And like balance is like riding a bicycle. Sometimes it's one way, sometimes it's the other. It's not a point, it's a process. So in Ayurveda also, Ayurveda understands remedies to the senses. And I must admit, what I was so delighted with when I got into Ayurveda is there's so many alternate and complementary interventions that can be used in our well-being. And Ayurveda gave me a process of understanding how and when to use which ones, because space is the sense of sound. So music can affect sound. Air is the sense of touch. We love massage, and we need to learn how to breathe properly. But we learned how to breathe when we were born, breathing in a conscious way with various rhythms and through the nose and using the rib cage are being shown through scientific research to affect well-being. Simple physical activities are used in hospitals to help patients recover by using the rib cage consciously, by using the breath consciously. If the fire element is out of balance, that means our sight may be affected. So what we look at is important. The colors we look at will affect the vibrations in the body through the chakras, which are energy points throughout the body, and in other ways. Water, if the water element is out of balance, well, it's the taste, and our food becomes really important. And if our earth element, if we're too solid, if we're moving too slowly, or if we're not grounded enough, means the smell, our sense of smell is affected. And aromatherapy is a wonderful tool. In terms of implementing these, the first remedy is always calming the mind, coming to the aspects of creation and reducing the vata, reducing the movement in the body. And a wonderful tool is meditation. Next, we look at the air element, and breath work is so important. These are two crucial tools in the Ayurveda toolbox, meditation and breathing. Aromatherapy comes next, light therapy. All of these are different ways of moving through the elements from the subtle to the gross. Fasting is recognized as a purification process. The water is an important element that one should always be sure we have enough. And finally, the remedies, when we can't do it through the kitchen, when we can't do it ourselves, medicinal herbs and medicine and even surgery are part of Ayurveda. That wonderful staying, everything is allowed in Ayurveda at the right time and the right place. Though Ayurveda recommends usually a vegetarian diet, meat and fish can be used. Chicken and turkey can be used as a medicine under the right conditions. So in the 1 minute that's left, or 2 minutes, I'd like to share with you a very simple breath that you can use at any time to relax your system. It's called straw breath. And it's called that because what it is simply is breathing in through the nose and then pursing the lips and blowing out as if you are blowing through a straw. When we were kids, we probably had a straw and we blew into water and made bubbles. It's that kind of a process. So let's take 1 minute and just do that. Take a breath in and breathe out through the mouth, pursing the lips. Take another breath in and breathe out right through a straw. And take 3 more breaths like that at your own pace. When you're finished, you can simply and easily open the eyes. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I hope you found a number of things of interest to love Ayurveda, the tools of the breath and meditation and understanding the body have been given to you. There are many simple meditations, guided meditations that you can do. And simply just sitting for a moment quietly is also a meditation. So thank you. If there's any questions.
Debra, thank you. Thank you so much for a very insightful presentation introducing Ayurveda to us today and how Ayurveda links the 5 elements to our 5 senses and the organs of action. It's a very fascinating talk. I think you really brought awareness as well to the importance of interconnectedness we have with nature and how we can really draw from that in terms of maintaining and increasing our wellness and health. We do have just a few moments for questions. The first thing, if you do have any questions, anyone, please do feel free to enter them into the chat box. We have just a few moments. And Debra, maybe we can share your contact information. If anyone has any specific questions we aren't able to get to today, we can enter that in the chat box as well. There was one comment made important. Someone was really, and I think I was too, I was excited to try out the quiz. You mentioned the Find Your Balance quiz. The link wasn't working properly. Is there any way that we would be able to share the Find Your Balance dosha quiz with the attendees from today's call?
I can look for it and I can see if I can find it and obviously put it in the chat if I find it before the end of this, yes.
Or if not, Debra, maybe since we won't have a lot of time, but if you do have a copy of it, we could always include it. There will be a survey going out to everyone who's on the call and we can always include it there as well, so everyone gets a copy. So no pressure on finding that right now. There was also a quick question asking, where does exercise come in? And I know in your last presentation with us, we talked about meditation and yoga. I wondered if you could speak to how does exercise tie in with Ayurveda?
Most definitely, it's a lifestyle issue. So depending on what your lifestyle, depending on your constitution, which is your dosha, different kinds of exercises will fit you. For instance, the Vata, which is a lot of movement, but they chill easily. Swimming may not be the best exercise for them, but swimming could be a wonderful exercise for Pitta, where there's a lot of fire because it will cool them down. Also, walking is always an excellent exercise, but Vata, whose stamina is low, may have to take it slowly and in short bursts, while Kapha, once they get started, it's hard to stop them. And Pitta, they like to be active, so sports is very good for them. Team sports in particular, because Pitta can be quite competitive if it's out of balance. And when you work on a team, you use that energy as a goal, everybody pointing in the right direction. So exercise is an important part of balancing our activity and our sleep.
Thank you, Debra. So we look like we've run out of time, but I wanted first of all to say thank you. Thank you to Debra Joy Eklove. And thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today for today's workshop. I'm sure some of you may plan to attend additional workshops with us. Information has been entered in the chat box of our upcoming talks, but you can always find information on those at our website for programs 50 plus or email us directly. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to get to more questions, but if you do have additional questions and comments for Debra, please feel free to email us at programs450plus@ryerson.ca, and we will gladly forward those on to Debra. And Debra, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything else or any other last information to this.
Thank you very much. No, I mean, but I also, as I mentioned in the slide, I'm very happy. If anybody wants to contact me, I would be happy for a 15-minute complimentary conversation on some of the things that may be more specific to you. and to help you in any way I can for Ayurveda to be one of the tools that you include in your wellness.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deborah. I really appreciate that. I was going to say the contact information, the panel. We also, as mentioned earlier, I had entered in the chat box, we will be sending out a recording of today's session. Deborah presented a lot of important information, so you can rewatch it at your leisure if there was any part that you may have missed or want to repeat, as well as a survey will be going out within 24 to 48 hours. So in closing, on behalf of the Chang School at Ryerson University and our presenter today, Debra Eklove, thank you. Thank you to everyone for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Debra.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.